Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Tech Support. My name is Mark Metzger. We are coming to you from the AVIXA TV studio at our office in Fairfax, Virginia, for a very special episode on how to set up for remote interviews. We know this is one of the most common questions that people tend to have as they are building corporate studios, and so we figured we'd bring in a couple of our friends from Ross Video to help us out. Joining me today in the studio first is Mr. Peter Fitton. How are you, Peter?
I'm well. How are you?
Welcome back.
Thank
Good to have you back in the studio.
Here.
Yep. And then joining us remotely from way down the hall is our friend Jamie Hall. I didn't think about that. Jamie Hall, down the hall.
Down the hall, I know.
There's something I should have done.
Doesn't it better?
Yeah. Yep. Jamie is joining us via Zoom. We're going to get into a lot of the technical side things here. We know we have a lot of your questions that we're going to get answered today. That's why we brought in the experts, but we're really going to get into the basics of here's how you set up a studio for corporate remote interviews. Mm-hmm. Here are some of the different use cases that the team at Ross are seeing across the world, and just dive into some of your questions and answers. So Peter, you ready?
Yeah, looking forward to it.
All right. First question here. What are the pros and cons of a software-based solution for remote interviews versus a hardware-based solution?
That's a good question. So first thing, obviously, software-based solutions are going to be much more affordable, much more approachable if you're just starting to get into this. Software is software, though, right? It runs on it's going to run on a PC or some sort of computer device. That's naturally just going to have some inherent risks. Windows update. That's broken a lot of things. Like, right, we all know that pain.
Right.
And there's always going to be some finite ceiling, right? You can do up to this much, whether it's physical inputs or NDI or whatever. There's a hard limit. And in a hardware-based solution, it's scalable from very small to very large. Hardware is designed to be run 24/7. You're not going to get an overnight Windows update that's going to break your whole system. And they're expandable. Just by definition, as your input as your input needs grow and as your output needs grow, you can add more hardware. And it's an incremental increase rather than I'm out of space. Now I need to buy a whole new set of software, a whole new computer, a whole new whatever, fill in the blank.
Right. What are some of the when a company comes to you and they say, hey, we are interested now in upgrading our facility here. So for example, we are sitting here in our studio. This used to be a conference space. Obviously with the pandemic, AVIXA, the way we changed work, we are fully remote now. We still have our office. So this used to be a conference room. The projector is still hanging right above our head right now. So it's a great space to be able to do the things that we need it to do. But we are a global organization, right? And so we want to be able to speak with people, not just here in Fairfax, Virginia, but all around the world. And we want the quality to be really high, right? So what are the first steps to planning for remote capabilities in a studio? So let's say I am ready to make the jump. Where do I begin?
First, you have to be able to identify and articulate the outcome. What end result do you want? Are we building a podcast studio? Great. That's good to know. What type of podcasts are you going to do? Who's doing these podcasts? Is this your executive team? Is this, team leaders, managers? Is it employees? Is it all of the above? Where are you creating this content for? All of these things are really important, pieces to the puzzle. Once the information is there, then we're able to start looking at hardware, individual pieces that can be put together into a solution that will meet that particular outcome or that particular desired outcome. When we talk about building out these broadcast AV solutions, there's this sort of convergence of, two separate worlds. Broadcast and AV, it used to be they could not be more different.
Right.
And now they're coming together, and we've got this convergence. And thinking about outcomes, but also thinking about potential future outcomes, planning for scalability, planning for flexibility. And that's where traditional broadcast equipment fits really well into this broadcast AV sphere, is because there is inherent scalability, there's inherent flexibility. I can continue to add pieces of equipment. I can continue to add functionality to hardware-based systems. Oftentimes, if you want a software-based system to do something new, you probably have to buy new software, new hardware, any number of things, new
Right.
interfaces.
Yep. I've always found, even going back to my earliest days of getting into video, I feel like you begin with one thing and then you kind of master it and you're like, oh, well, I'd like to do a little bit more than that, right? And so I think that the scalability is huge because, like you said, you might not even know what you don't know.
Right.
Once you dive into it, then it's like, oh, well, it'd be nice if we could do that thing too.
Absolutely.
So to be able to have that flexibility of growth, I would imagine is super helpful too, right?
It is. It's huge. And it's not uncommon for the same thing to happen at the executive level, right? Hey, we spent X number of dollars on this beautiful studio. We're able to do all of these things that we weren't able to do before. Could you do this?
Yep.
Can we add this functionality?
Right.
Well, what if I wanted to do this instead? And if you are working inside the constraints of, a software-based system or a really small hardware-based system, you might have to say no. Well, who wants to say no to the executive team when they just cut a check for, whatever?
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
Not a good place to be.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into it now. We are going to start by talking through some of the elements that we have here in our studio in this space. Then we are going to go back down the hall to Jamie to talk through some of the things that we have in the control room. So if you want to walk us through, what are some of the key elements that you would say that we have here in our studio space that would be most helpful for people to think through as they are designing and planning their solution?
That's a great question. First and foremost, I'm a video guy. I've been a video guy for a long time. I have to admit, the single most important thing when you're building a studio is lighting. You have to get the lighting right.
Yep.
If you go out and you buy a bunch of brand new equipment and super high-end cameras and you have poor lighting, those super high-end cameras are just going to show how bad your lighting is.
Right.
One of the things I talk with customers often about is it's very unusual that somebody will come to you and say, that's a really good looking video, because we don't know that. If you're a video guy, yeah, but if you're not a video guy, you won't notice that. But the amount of content that we consume, whether it be on television or streaming or any number of other outlets, has reached such a high level of quality that if the content that we're producing doesn't look that way, people are going to notice.
Right.
We're conditioned to know what good is, and we can't necessarily articulate it, but we know what bad is, and we absolutely can say, that's terrible.
Right.
I can't watch that. And it's important whether you're, creating a commercial or something that's going to be public facing, or just a quick little message to your employees. Holding their attention is just as important in both of those scenarios.
Right. Yep. Some of the other things that we have here in our studio, you can probably tell we have 2 PTZ cameras that Jamie is able to control from the control room. So he can cut between the 2 of those. A couple other things that are super helpful, I think, is we have positioned a monitor right underneath this PTZ. So when I am looking as the host into this camera, I can see what the program feed is, and I can see our remote guests as well. And then the last thing that I always, sound audio is perhaps the one thing we always forget about. Might be a little hard to see, but we do have IFBs here to be able to hear Jamie down the hall. So those are some of the other, just simple things that you might not think through. I mean, again, these earpieces, not expensive to find.
Good
but
microphones.
Absolutely. Good audio, is critical. So each of those little pieces matters. But in particular, I think, certainly make sure you have a good way to have IFB to be able to communicate with your remote guests. And I think the display here is pretty critical as well. So
because we can't have speakers, in here.
Exactly.
It's just going to echo. It's going to feedback. It's going to do all sorts of bad things.
Exactly. Yep. So these are a pretty discreet way, especially with us, not being able to see it for the audience. Exactly. Yep. Jamie, let's go to you now down the hall as we are again connected here with Jamie,
Hey, Jamie.
Via Zoom. So, Jamie, talk us through in the control room, what are some of the elements that are most critical, you think, for a team that might be beginning to plan their space? What should you know as you begin to develop the control room?
Yeah, it's an evolution, really. I think the most basic thing that you're going to need in order to start producing a show is some sort of platform to switch between multiple cameras. This can start out with a software-based solution like Mark and Peter were talking about at the beginning of the show. You think about things like OBS or some of these other software-based switching platforms controlled via Stream Deck or something like that. That is probably the most fundamental version of working through switching a video feed. Now, obviously, I have the opposite. It's this is a TD2 touch drive controlling a Ultrix Carbonite, which is our ROS switching platform for, I'd say, middle of the road production. Carbonites are very capable systems, and they have a lot of professional switcher functionality. So things like macros, custom controls, things like that. But this allows us to really take in as many sources as we need, like Peter said. So I can have up to 22 sources in this switcher. We have room for up to 4 cameras ready to go inside of this panel. Should Mark and the team add a couple of extra PTZs. We've got room for 4 Zoom feeds. And then we also have other resources that allow us to build that double box effect like you can see right here. So switching is an important part of the equation. Once we get past switching, we can start talking about infrastructure. So this panel that I have over here is connected to our Ultrix platform, which is our router. When you talk about routing, we're moving signal around the building. So the idea that Mark has a monitor in front of him, I can put any video that I have coming into the back of my router into that monitor for him, or any of the monitors that are inside of the studio. And routing is one of those things that it isn't one of the inherently flashy pieces of gear that you're going to put into your room. But the idea that inside of a corporate setting, we can send custom content to literally any monitor in the building, all of a sudden has a ton of appeal. You can see people recording a podcast as they walk in on a monitor inside of a lobby. From there, it's all bells and whistles. We have a little Ultra Touch panel here. This is a control interface that I built for the team at AVIXA that lets me, with a single push of a button, switch through some of these sources that we have inside of the switcher panel here. And even take my double box anytime that I want. And it just sort of takes the complication out of everything that we've done here, so that AVIXA and the team don't need to have someone like me on site. We can do these things replicatably and easily with a team of relatively modest operators, even interns and things like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jamie, one point of clarification too. I mean, I know we are using Zoom, I believe, for this connection, but this hardware can support other platforms as well. It's not just Zoom, other software-based solutions too. Is that correct?
Yeah. So in order to facilitate remote participants, I think the easiest way to do it is rely on the platform. So if you're going to work with Teams, Microsoft has done a really great job at implementing what's called an NDI workflow. Mm-hmm. So you're allowed to turn on broadcasting inside of Teams, and that will allow every participant, including the presenter view that's going to have your PowerPoint for whoever's presenting or sharing their screen. You have individual presenters presented as discrete channels with discrete audio, and then you also have your regular speaker and gallery views. Zoom has the same thing. It's called Zoom ISO, and that's what we're using inside of our production suite here. And we're sending that to a DeckLink card that allows it to go SDI into our switcher panel. So understandably, Zoom is a lot more open. So it's the kind of thing that a user can go and download and install Zoom. It doesn't require licensing the way a Microsoft Teams would. I would say there's a sort of decision to be made when you're planning your project. Are we going to go down the Zoom route, or are we going to go down the Teams route? And that's going to present individual challenges or individual opportunities. At the most fundamental level, you guys have a couple of decimators inside of your studio. These are just video boxes that you can just drop into your system that take HDMI video in, and they'll spit out SDI video, which is the flavor that we need to use with your particular switcher here inside of the AVIXA TV studio. And those are, they're typically called scan converters. They just take a video signal in and turn it into the video signal that you need for broadcast. So with that functionality, we don't need to be discerning on whether it's Teams or Zoom. We're just going to take a full screen output from the laptop. That's going to present things like maybe a notification popped up in the middle of your meeting, and that's going to show up on the taskbar, or maybe someone calls you in the middle of the call from another Zoom location. So
yeah,
bunch of different options.
And I would think those converters as well allow you, again, speaking of scalability, maybe you have a couple of cameras that aren't equipped for SDI, or maybe it's HDMI input, but you can use those tools that you already have and some of that hardware and be able to convert the signal to get it to what you need. So gives you a little bit of flexibility here in this studio space, I would think too, right?
Yeah, I'm building a studio in my basement at home. I'm going to, I'm attempting to put together a video series where I start right from a very grassroots level of having just a camera. And then I'm going to add in all of the individual pieces over time. And so I'm sort of going down that route right now. My still camera is a Sony A6300, and I plugged that into a video capture card in the back of my computer, and that's how I'm starting. So from there, I'm going to build. I'll add PTZs and I'll add switching and all this other stuff. So it's going to be a fun series, and maybe I'll reach out to you, get some help with promoting this on the AVIXA platform.
Well, I was going to say, you're already gotten the fast start on the promotion there. Follow Jamie Hall on LinkedIn, and follow his journeys. That's fantastic. Okay, so last question then here for us. What is REMI, and how could it help my team? Peter, I'm going to start with you, and then we're going to go to Jamie to get his thoughts on that.
Okay. REMI's a really interesting concept for the broadcast AV market. It's been around for a while. Lots of, traditional broadcasters, TV stations, sports especially, they're doing this. Basically, what it means is you've got people in the field, right? Whether it's a camera crew, you've got people in the field, but everything is being brought back to a central studio and mixed live by someone like Jamie. The reason why that's so interesting for the corporate market is, especially when we start talking about the larger customers, they're not in one location. They're not in one country sometimes. And so being able to operate a production in LA from New York or London, being able to bring signals back and forth between those two. Now you have the ability to have one group rather than a production group at every single location, a full production group. So you can send your cameras out, you can send your audio guys out, but you can still mix everything locally and have control locally.
Right. Huge flexibility.
Huge.
Even thinking for us at AVIXA, so like we said, we have our office here in Fairfax, Virginia, the suburbs of Washington, D.C. Our team, though, is spread out all throughout kind of the East Coast. We also have international trade shows that we're doing. So obviously Infocom is in Orlando and in Vegas, but we also go to Barcelona for Integrated Systems Europe. So I would imagine for other corporations who have that global workforce, REMI is going to be a huge asset potentially for them too.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things that it's not necessarily thought of real deep. I mean, it's often brought up, hey, I want to be able to see London. I want to be able to control London. And when we get asked that, it's like hey, this is probably not possible, but wouldn't it be cool if we could, operate the studio in London? It's like, yeah, easy. We can do that. No problem.
Yep.
What?
Right. As a light bulb moment.
Exactly. It changes. It really is a game changer.
Yeah. Jamie, what about you? REMI, from your perspective, what are some of the benefits and how can it help teams that have that global workforce?
Yeah, so the term REMI has been around for quite a while. It typically meant just sending cameras to a location, whether that's a studio or a stadium or something like that, and then have the back end operated from a single place. I think what we sort of missed in the description there, not to get in the way, Peter, but is that we now have platforms that will allow you to switch in one location, have the video flowing into another location, have the studio in a third location. Literally nothing is centralized anymore. Nothing. So if you want to have your switcher operating from New York and it's all going into your video hub in London and that's getting routed to Singapore for a Teams meeting or whatever, it really is. And maybe that is what you were illustrating, Peter, but the idea is that it's truly not centralized at any part of the signal chain anymore. Everything is available everywhere.
Right. So it's not just the ability to bring someone in as a guest for a podcast recording or something, but you truly can control things in a global remote sense, of the phrase. So that's super cool too.
Yeah.
Great.
It's like a wheel, but every single spoke can be anywhere.
Yep.
Anywhere. Their devices can be controlled remotely. Their, cameras, signal comes in, everything. It's all remote.
Yep. Fantastic. Peter and Jamie, before we wrap up here, any kind of closing wisdom, anything that you would recommend to people thank you again first for walking us through each one of these different tools and things that we have. But is there anything else that you would just give as advice to someone who might be interested in continuing to upgrade their corporate studio?
Don't be afraid to look at it. There's this kind of idea that that's broadcast and we do something different.
Mm-hmm.
And I would encourage anybody that is at the ceiling of what their current system will offer to not discount the broadcast workflows that have been around forever that can be adapted specifically to work inside of an AV environment, a corporate environment. Because like I said earlier, those two worlds are coming together.
Yep.
It's kind of like 10 years ago, right? When broadcast and IT came together. We're sort of walking through that same idea now. So don't be scared of it. Maybe that's a better way to put it.
Yep.
Don't be scared of it.
And that's an important message for our integrators, I think, as well. Because traditionally it's been, I just do AV things, I don't do broadcast. But
yeah,
it's such a market that I don't think it's something that you can just ignore at this point anymore.
And I think at this point there's integrators that just don't know that it's possible.
Yeah.
Or don't know what the outcomes are.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be scared.
Yep.
Investigate it.
That's great. Jamie, what about you? Any final words of wisdom to people who are looking to add remote capabilities to their corporate studio?
Yeah, I would say do it. Jump in. You're going to learn lessons. Really have a plan for what it is that you want. I think that Peter gave us the greatest advice right at the beginning. Let's think about what that system's going to look like as a whole. But let's not fool ourselves. There's going to be growing pains along the way, no matter how many I's you dot and T's you cross. So get in there. That's where you have your fun. I think about the first couple of times that I was switching shows when I was younger, and even for years after that, you get that feeling of butterflies in your stomach and, oh, am I going to do it right? And there's nerves and all that. That's the exciting part. And those are the parts that are going to be performance-based. It feels like art. It's truly something that I want everybody in the world to experience. So don't be intimidated by it. Jump in with both feet and don't take yourself too seriously. Yep. Eventually, it's going to be something really slick. And what you have as a plan is going to just be so much better than what you think. It's going to pull your team together. The SIs are going to be able to show what a solution they've provided for their clients and can use that to represent their business moving forward. There's really nothing but if you allow people to use their creativity and move forward in the space that you're trying to create, I think you're really going to come up with something that's truly amazing.
No, that's awesome. It's definitely, you get those butterflies, like you said, Jamie, but when you nail it, it's a great feeling when you're all done. So appreciate you guys. I think you nailed it today. Really appreciate the help and talking our audience through this. And feel free to certainly reach out to anyone at the team. Certainly if you have questions of us and kind of the setup that we have here, happy to help you all out as well as you begin to progress and add more remote capabilities to your studio. So Peter, Jamie, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yep.